Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second webinar from Millennium STEM called First Year Tips. So, here we'll be giving you all the tips and tricks to starting off your first year university, and we hope it'll help ease your nerves a bit. So, my name is Amira, and I will be one of your presenters today. I am going into my third year of physiology, and I'd like to introduce our other presenters as well today.
Hi there, my name is Palswan, and I am also going into my third year of physiology.
Hi, my name's Elise, and I'm going into my second year of physiology.
Hi, my name's Yimeng, and I'm going to my second year software engineering.
Sorry, just some housekeeping. So any questions will be entered into the chat, and remember we do have a Q&A session at the end, so stick around for that. We also have to note that this presentation will not be shared, but you will be getting a handbook full of resources that we compiled, and hopefully that will help you guys along. And so looking at our outline, we have first talking about academic tips, campus life tips, some wise words from our fellow students, and a Q&A session at the end. And remember, again, we have any questions can be put into the chat box. So first things first, what is university life? It's academics. So we're going to start off with academic tips.
All right. So I'm sure that most of you guys have already created your schedule on Bear Tracks. There are only a few tips that I want to point out. One of them being make sure that you check your exam schedule. You can do this by going onto Bear Tracks and going to My Classes and scrolling down to tentative exam schedule. The reason why I say this is because personally, I try to rearrange my schedule if I have 2 exams in one day, or even worse, 3 to 4 finals in the span of 2 days. Final exams, as you guys will come to learn, are a big part of your grade and thus another factor to look at in addition to professor shopping. That being said, it is definitely possible to do well with the back-to-back exam schedule, because I know it's not possible for everyone to rearrange their schedule. But just be conscious of the time that you are then prioritizing for each final and that you're planning well ahead. Next up, make sure you are conscious of the add drop deadline, which for this semester is September 15th. This deadline is pretty nice in the fact that it's about 2 weeks into September, because if you're unsure of taking any classes, or you don't know if you're going to like the professor or the topic of the class, you can still enroll in your class and sit in those first couple weeks and decide by the 15th whether you want to drop the course or not without getting any W's or being charged any tuition fees. So make sure that if you're unsure of taking a class that you drop it by September 15th. However, if you do choose to go with the class, there is nothing wrong with taking a W if you find that you are struggling in the class. It is way better to have a W than a grade that may affect your GPA significantly. As in the grand scope, a couple W's are not detrimental. And next up, if you know what your program you want to accomplish is, especially if it's specialization or honors, make sure you are fulfilling your program requirements by checking the U Alberta calendar. The U Alberta calendar contains all the requirements for any programs, even general programs, and if there are specific courses that you need to take, it will have it listed there. You do want to make sure that you're fulfilling all your program requirements, so if you have that goal of finishing in 4 years, that you finish all your classes within that time. Also, make sure that you're reviewing the 2020-2021 calendar. On the top right-hand corner, I believe, of the U Alberta calendar website, it will have the year of the calendar you're reviewing. And the thing is, sometimes the website can automatically direct you to older years. I have had friends who didn't know they were looking at old calendars, and they ended up taking classes that they never had to in the first place because program requirements can change year to year. One tip that I learned from another student is that you should always visit a faculty advisor to confirm your schedule before the ad drop deadline, since even if classes have started already. There are often courses that you don't know that you had to take, and it can set back your plans for your entire degree, so having an advisor to double check that you're on the right track is a really good idea. And they can also give you tips to plan your schedule if you're having trouble fitting in the elective that you like or getting appropriate class times that fit your ideal schedule. They can answer those questions. All right, moving on to lecture tips. Here are a few things you can do to further advance your learning. First off, the e-class and your syllabi are your guides for this semester. Most professors use e-class to post their lectures and administer quizzes. You will quickly accumulate a ton of deadlines in each class, so I would recommend syncing your e-class calendar to your Google Calendar or any other online calendar that you use, and make sure that you are setting up your preferred notifications. With your syllabus, as boring as syllabus week, or in other words, the first week of classes is, your syllabus can answer almost any questions you have about your course, including assignment weightings, grading methods, office hours, and required textbooks. So make sure you read it over and note all the important dates in your calendar as well. One more thing I would like to add is to make sure that you are being active on your U Alberta email. This is something that I personally didn't used to do. I would rarely ever check my email, but being a university student, you should be checking your email daily. Especially as classes are online, most professors will be communicating that way. Moving on to actual classes, it's really important to ask questions if you don't understand anything. And one great way that you can do so is e-class forums. By now, they are starting to post classes on eClass. So if you do log into your eClass, you might already see some courses pop up. And most courses have a eClass forum discussion, which is a place where you can write in your questions at any time. It doesn't have to be during your class. And this is great because you don't actually have to vocalize your question, which I know is I know for myself, I don't usually like to ask questions during class because that can sometimes be hard to do, especially in a Zoom class. So these forums are great because you don't have to say anything out loud. Also, professors who do choose to use these forums often will prefer that you use it rather than individually emailing them questions, because students often have the same questions as you and they can check the forums. And another way to get help during your classes is to go to office hours. Professors can seem very daunting during lectures, but they're actually very helpful almost always during office hours. They can even give you tips towards exams and help you on any questions. Don't go because you think it's going to be awkward, because you've essentially paid for this time. Moving on to textbooks, my number one recommendation regarding textbooks would be to not buy any textbooks the first week of classes. I know this can seem pretty stressful because you feel like you want to have a book right away and ready to go so that you can open it up and study. But the reason why I'm saying do not buy textbooks the first week of classes is because for most classes, you're not going to need one. Even if the syllabus says recommended, professors make your tests, so the material that they test largely comes from their notes rather than the textbook. The textbook is more of a supplementary or auxiliary resource, which is great if you are the type of person who likes using those secondary resources to help make sense of concepts. I personally wasn't one. I thought I was going to use the textbook as a secondary resource, but I came to learn that there was so much information in class to absorb that I just didn't even have time to touch the books. However, there are some classes that will explicitly state on your syllabus that the textbook is required, which is a really big difference from recommended, so make sure you check that. Some of these classes, for example, are introductory psychology classes. The professors will directly tell you that they will test 50% of the material from the textbook, which at that point you should definitely buy the book. You can also always ask around upper year students if you know any, or you can ask us later in the Q&A to see if you will need a textbook. We can't guarantee whether or not you're going to actually need one, since sometimes material changes year to year, but it gives you a pretty good sense whether you'll need a textbook. And there is nothing wrong with purchasing a textbook anyways. Like I said, if you're the type of person who would like to use a secondary resource. If you do decide to, however, know that you do not need the newest edition, since general first-year material doesn't change that much. So I would recommend buying used textbooks from Facebook groups, Kijiji. There are also textbook sales held by ICE and ESS, which are the Science and Engineering Societies. And there are tons of these links in the handbook that we will be distributing at the end of this presentation. The only exception where you will need to buy a new textbook is if you require an access code to third-party homework material. Some examples of these type of classes are usually math and stats classes. You can buy the access code to your homework material alone, but it is pretty pricey either way, so most people usually buy the textbook with the code. Some third parties also have a free option to access your homework material, and it's negotiated with them by the course's faculty, but it is usually limited to working on that homework in certain locations, like Cameron Library computers. So with the pandemic going on, I know many people won't be on campus. I guess if you live on campus, you might be in luck, depending whether the buildings are open. So just to wrap up this slide, around the people I know, many including myself, spent way more than we needed to in our first year. I did not even end up touching some of the textbooks I bought. And like I said, I thought I was going to use the textbooks as a secondary resource, but there was just no time to do so because you end up accumulating a lot of information in all your other classes. So I just would say use all this advice to your discretion when purchasing textbooks.
Okay, so moving on to study strategies. Just because we're in the wake of the pandemic and because a lot of our classes are online, this slide is super important, but also need to remember that everybody studies differently and that you will learn about your studying style. So these are just tips. The biggest thing is that you should give yourself time. The most important thing to give yourself time is because there is a lot of information in university and it becomes a lot different from the high school information that you were previously used to. And at times, yes, procrastination is really hard, but you can definitely get over it. Again, just give yourself time, give yourself those breaks. And then you also need to remember the 3 R's. The first one is read. So it's to make sure you need to read your notes and make sure that your classes and the information that you have make sense. And by reading and rereading, you can go back to lectures and you can go back to slides and see where you miss things or see where you can clarify certain aspects. The second thing is to review. This is the most important because you would be surprised how much recall this takes. However, you need to review at least weekly so that when you're studying for a major test, you aren't super overwhelmed. Also, the best thing for major tests is to start at least a week early before they happen. And lastly, this is the most important thing is to rest because even though pulling all-nighters, even working for 5 hours straight may be easy, it takes a lot of toll on you, especially in your health, and it can be really damaging. Also, it's great to have the right tools. In lectures at university, especially now you have online, you should take notes when the prof is talking, and you should have the right tools. So a lot of people learn differently. You can use a pen and paper, and I know a lot of people type their words as well, but some people also have a tablet with pens on it. So again, it's all dependent on your studying style. So another thing you should have is that you should have water and food because dehydration and hunger really limits your ability to continue studying and to get information into your head. And you should also remember to have highlighters and basic necessities like sticky notes and all those great stuff. I really recommend using OneNote because the data is already backed up into the cloud. And so writing with touchscreen and pens is also great for writing notes. And it's great for assignments that usually require a lot of work when you don't have to waste a lot of paper with it. And so moving on to the next slide, we're talking about the best places to study in university. But because of the wake of the pandemic, it's really important that you check these places if they are open on the university website. They will have updates throughout the semester as to whether you can access these spaces or not. So the biggest thing is the libraries. The libraries have multiple floors that are filled with MacBooks and window computers, and also has a lot of quiet spaces that you can go. So Cameron first floor rooms are great to study in groups or even to take any kind of meetings. Cameron's second floor is also great for friends. A lot of people tend to use Cameron third and fourth floor if they want really quiet study times, but again, please check if these are open. So when you're looking at Rutherford, Rutherford is more in the arts quad, and a lot of people use the second floor. It has reportedly the Harry Potter room. So that's a place where you can go in there and have a really great study time because it's super quiet in there. But right on the outside of the Harry Potter room, you can actually have a space for you and your friends to talk. The last thing is Coots Library. So Coots Library is actually located in education. I find it personally a really great place to study because it's super quiet and not many people go there. And at the same time, you can go there with friends because you can whisper and you don't really bother many people. Another great place is the ECA study room. So ECA has these rooms that you can book for individual study, just like Cameron Library, and they can be booked online. Usually they include a whiteboard as well as a computer and a TV screen. Again, really great for meetings. Some people really like the sub windows in the patio area. It's really nice if you like natural light and if you're really into people watching. There is an area in sub with stairs that lead to the basement, and it's super open if you want to go there with friends. And even though it may not be super quiet, they have comfortable chairs and small tables for laptops. A lot of people also like the agricultural building. There's a nice greenhouse-like lounge area in it, and it's really great if you like studying in white noise. But it's normally loud there, and the tables are kind of small. And again, please check if these places are open. And a lot of the times, especially when school is going on, there's a lot of noise everywhere. If you go in the upper floors of building, like the Chem building or the Central Academic building, Torrey, some of the engineering buildings as well, the upper floors are quite quiet. And for all-nighters, and hopefully none of you will be pulling any of these, sub and Cameron basement are actually open 24/7. And so we're moving on to help. In academics, we always think we have everything under control, but there's a lot of times where we need to ask for help. And so the university has a lot of great academic help resources. So the first one is the Decima Robinson Center for Math and Stats. This room is in the upper floor of the Central Academic Building, and it allows students to get help in math and stats. This really helped me personally for taking a math course in my first year. The second is the chemistry help centers. So chemistry, usually 101 and 102 with the introductory chemistry courses, have a separate room from the upper year organic chemistry courses. And so the first one with the general chemistry courses is that it's usually there for chemistry labs, and they post lab activities that need to be completed. There are TAs on the second floor of the chemistry building who offer help with your assignments and those tricky lab calculations that sometimes are kind of hard to perform. The Organic Chemistry Help Center, or for the upper year chemistries, it will require you access to your results and allow you to get help in writing lab reports that we usually have to get done pretty quickly. And so another thing is that if you end up having to write a lot of essays, you can go to the Center for Writers. It helps in everything from science papers to English papers. And if you think you're actually really good at writing and really good at editing, you can volunteer there and help other students out their thoughts on their papers. Something for science students, which is really great, is that ICE has mini study groups. Is that sometimes we, again, coming into your first year, a lot of these classes are very overwhelming because they are your very first university classes. In ICE mini study groups, There is a mentor who had at least an A minus in the course, and they will be meeting with you and a few other students every week to go over the materials. And registration opens within the first couple weeks of September, and spots fill up really fast. So make sure you can get on that if you really are interested in joining this. And note that sometimes it can have some long wait times, and it's completely free. And something similar for engineers is ESSC. It's a Student Success Center, which caters to resources to engineering students. They have TAs available, career development advice, and connections to different engineering resources, not only within the U of A, but in and around Edmonton. And so now that we've covered our academic life, we also need to go over campus life, because even though university is a lot about academics, to really get the experience, you need to really try to involve yourself in campus life. So it's a huge part that'll make your time really worthwhile.
Okay, so to get started with campus life, a great thing for first years especially to do is to get involved. So I'm just going to go over a few ways you can do that. So to start off, Bears Den is a really great way to get involved with clubs. It's a website that contains all of the registered university clubs. It includes contact information for the clubs as well as events that these clubs have planned and are planning for the future. That's a really great starting spot just to browse through virtually what your options are. Another thing that can kind of be annoying, but is actually really helpful, is every Wednesday you will receive a student digest to your email. Um, it so the way Student Digest works is people can submit events or notifications or anything they want to this. They get screened and then it gets sent to your email every week. A lot of these are events that clubs are putting on. Sometimes they're calls for research participation. It can get a bit annoying getting it every week. You don't get to subscribe to unsubscribe from it, but it is, if you take the time to read through it, it is a really great opportunity to kind of get aware of what's going on. Another great thing is Clubs Fair, which this year obviously can't be in person, but it will be a week of welcome webinar. So this will happen during the first week of classes. You get the chance to view other students just like you running clubs and getting involved in the community or just having fun. It's a really great way to, again, just open your eyes to all of the great things that campus has to offer. And this year there will be an online quiz to find out which club best fits you. So that's really helpful as well. Moving on, if you're really into sports and fitness, the Van Vliet Center and the kinesiology faculty, they have lots of opportunities to join intramural teams. There's basketball, hockey, volleyball, water polo. Essentially, you think of it, they have it. So that's a really great way to meet people who are very like-minded and are into the same things as you. They also have opportunities for fitness classes like kickboxing and rock climbing, and just other ways like that to get involved in campus and the community rec. And then as well, we also have free virtual classes through Van Vliet. So that's a really great thing you can do from home. And it's just kind of a way that campus and the U of A has been adapting to COVID. And although there are all these super great ways to get involved, you do have to remember that you can't take on more than you can bear. Especially going into first year, I remember for me at least when I walked into Clubs Fair, there were so many things that I was interested in, and I ended up signing up for way more than I could handle. And as the semester went on, I ended up realizing that I couldn't actually deal with everything on my plate. It's really important to remember that a healthy work-life balance is key. It's important to start small. Many groups on campus know the struggles of a student who wants to volunteer hours. So many places do have low time commitments. It might just be like one thing a week. Some things you don't even have to make that commitment. You can just decide to volunteer whenever it works for you. Additionally, don't feel like you actually need to jump right into getting involved right off the bat. First year can be very intimidating and overwhelming with all of your classes, just adjusting to campus life, that transition from high school into university. So take your time to find your bearings. There's no pressure to be super involved right away. Something else that can be really helpful is to get involved with groups outside of your discipline. If you're a science student, which most of you probably are, maybe you're super into creative writing. You can find a club for that, so you don't need to focus just on what your degree is in. There's so many opportunities to branch out. So moving on to making friends, a really great way to do this is, like I was just talking about, to join a club. Um, this is honestly one of the best ways to meet people because you meet them outside of an academic setting. These people are like-minded to you, they have the same interests, you get to see them often, especially since campus is such a big place. This can just help campus feel a little smaller. Another great resource for you guys are Facebook groups. So there's lots of university class of 2024 Facebook groups through which you can meet new people, just kind of get to know people, especially because you don't really get that chance to like sit down next to someone you're in a lecture hall. These can be really great for you. As well, Discord communities are super helpful. So various faculties and majors have Discord servers that provide a variety of useful tips for your program. So feel free to join one today. We have some links in the handbook that we'll be distributing at the end of our session. So this might be a little different for you guys, just with everything being online, but labs are also a super great way to meet people. Labs are usually only 20 people big, so it's a smaller group than your massive lectures. You get to see these people every week. You're doing the same thing as them. So don't hesitate to say hi and work together in your labs. So this might be different for you guys just because you are first year, but this is a good idea when you do get to be back on campus. Additionally, if you do end up working in groups for any online classes, don't be shy with these group members. Your online class group projects may be different than in person, but regardless, don't miss out on this opportunity to get to know new people who are taking the same class as you. Okay, so kind of switching gears a bit, scholarships are super important. I'm sure most of you had applied back in December, I think it was, for your entrance scholarships. There's other scholarships that you can apply for usually after your first year through the same way that you applied for your entrance scholarships. So the main ones that you can get based solely on your GPA are the Jason Lang Scholarship or Louise McKinney. Jason Lang is based on your GPA. You need at least a 3.2 in your fall winter combined. Louise McKinney, you don't even have to apply for. It's just automatic based on your GPA. Another super great thing about being a university student is you get discounts everywhere. So one of the best ones is we get a 40% off discount at Domino's. The code is UNI, UNI. That's a super great one. Who doesn't love pizza? Another thing we get is free Microsoft 365. So if you sign up for that with your UAlberta email, you get it for free, which is super great. It can be really expensive otherwise. And as well, just showing your student ID at stores might get you discounts. There's no harm in just pulling it out and saying, "Hey, I'm a student. Like, do you have a discount for me?" We have lists and links for all these discounts in our handbook as well. I'm not sure if this is going to happen this year, but if you do get the Students' Union agenda, there are free coupons for lots of things on campus in there, such as TC discounts and free slushies from Submart. Yeah, so many places do have student discounts. You just have to ask and show them your student ID. So it's never a bad thing to just carry your ID on you. Additionally, there's free walk-in clinics for health checkups on campus, which is super helpful. So if you need a quick health checkup, the U of A Health Center provides these for you. Currently, they're doing phone call appointments, and from there they assess if you need to come in or not. Just with everything going on, they don't want you to actually go in person if you don't need to. But these clinics also do free vaccines, so that's super great to get your flu shots. Okay, so a very important thing for especially first year figuring out everything is to take care of yourself. It can be super overwhelming and you might forget to take that step back and actually take care of yourself instead of just focusing on your academics and everything you want to do to get involved. So a good place to start is to connect with friends or family or even just have someone to talk to. This can be your mental pillar, a distraction from stress, or even a shoulder to cry on. Especially in COVID times, we need friends more than ever to keep up our sanity. You can either stay in touch with old friends or make new ones. Even if you don't have friends, make time for family or even pets in your life. It's just important to have that social group that you can fall back on. It's also important to make sure you actually have a schedule and stick to it, especially with COVID and not actually going to a lecture hall. It can feel very strange to have to do everything from home. So having a schedule and making yourself stick to that can be really helpful. So you can make to-do lists to organize your thoughts, and don't beat yourself up for taking breaks. Breaks are super important to let your mind kind of take a break from everything, step back, refocus, and regroup, and then go back to whatever task you were working on. Kind of along this line, having rewards for yourself can be super helpful. I know for me, I like to study with gummy bears. So I'll like study a chapter, have a break, have some gummy bears, or like read a paragraph, have a gummy bear. That's just what works for me. It motivates me and keeps me on track that way. It's also important to take time for things that isn't school. Um, it can sometimes feel very overwhelming, and you can think, "Oh my gosh, I have so much to get done. I have to like power through and not do anything else all day." But that can actually it can make it worse for you, and then you just stress yourself out. So if you take a break, say go for a run or read a chapter of a book or go for coffee with a friend, just taking a break and stepping back can really help your mental health. Um, Also, showering is also important. It can help you take a break. You do your best thinking in the shower, so don't forget about that. YouTube videos, retail therapy, naps, playing with your pets, literally anything other than school is super good to take a break. As well, it is okay to take less than a full course load. You might feel pressured to take 5 courses a semester. You don't have to do that. It's okay to take longer than 4 years for your degree. People's minds work differently, so don't feel like you have to complete your degree in 4 years. It's okay to only take 4 or even 3 courses a semester, depending on your program, and take an extra year for your degree. That's perfectly fine. Um, and it is okay to procrastinate sometimes. Obviously, it's not the best. We all do it. But sometimes you're just gonna have bad days, and don't beat yourself up for having an off day. Um, you also have to make sure you stay healthy. You will do a lot better in your academic life if you're taking care of your body and your mental health. So water super important. Um, Eating well super important, and sleep is one of the biggest things. It helps with your mental and physical health and puts you in a better mindset to get work done. You work a lot better when you're not tired. Um, and something that I would recommend is, say if you have a super big final or midterm coming up, you might feel like you have to pull an all-nighter if you don't know all the material or you're just super stressed about it, but that will actually make it worse. I recommend, for me, I never work past 9 or 10 p.m. If I don't know something by then, I'm just not going to know it, so I go to bed. It does stress me out, but I find I'd rather get a good night's sleep than stay up all night and not feel good the next morning for my exam.
Awesome. So now we'll move to one of our last segments. So a big part of this presentation would not be possible if we didn't have a little help from students around the university. So here we collected some wise words from your fellow upper years who want to see you having your first year, the best year you had.
So I'm going to summarize kind of like the idea of these quotes and have my own understanding and tell it to you right now. So first one is that if there's too much going on, it's okay to say no. So as I, have my time in university, I start to realize how important health is, because it's really the only thing that matters the most, is because you're healthy and you're able to do things. But if you're not healthy, a lot of things you can't do them. So definitely first priority is your mental health and your physical health, and also be open to new experiences, because you all know, this is a new stage in life and everyone's really excited for it. So please be open to new things, new ideas, new experiences. Try to make as many friends, like diverse friends as you can, to really experience the university life. The second tip is that you should work hard. Working hard gets you further than simply being smart. So working hard is referring to like a habit, like working habits, and try not to procrastinate, like Elise said before. And so one really important thing if you want to do well in your academically is to consistently working hard. The next one is free food is everywhere. I don't know how often you guys are going to be present on campus, but this is true, very true. When campus is open, free food is everywhere. So if you're trying to stay longer on campus and didn't have enough food with you, you can probably possibly look up these events and attend them and have pizza at the end. So next we have Explore Campus. Don't know how much this is applicable to you, but campus is a really pretty place. It has all different sorts of buildings, and it's a very big area, and it's very cool because it's thousands of students normally go there and attend lectures and have their education. So it's very important that if you have the time, you should explore the campus. The second one will go to the right. You're not shackled to the program you apply to. So it's really hard for a lot of first years because they're like, oh yeah, I think I'm interested in science, so I'm gonna go into science. But that may not be true for a lot of people because when they actually take the course specific course, like science or arts or philosophy, they'll realize what it is really like. So there's no shame of like transferring faculty or transferring major because this isn't something you imagine it to be. It's totally okay if this is not your thing, because I know a lot of people who use like 3 years or even 5 years to explore what they really like. So this is an experience of exploration. The next one is, as I said before, your mental and physical health is way more important than your GPA. So it's really the most important thing you have that allow you to do these kind of things. So please focus on your mental and physical health. And if you need help anytime, please, there's free resources for counseling on campus. And I know they have moved it onto online too. So if you have any questions or concerns about seeing another person or you have hardship in your life, please look those up, and they're mostly free. Next one is get PC Optimum. So that's the superstore, no frills line of points. So when you buy groceries, you can get extra points, and then you can get free groceries. So it's good. Everyone likes free groceries. And the last one on this slide is don't take a class you hate unless you really need it for your degree. So since a class is fairly long, like for 3 months, so you don't want to be doing this course content and doing the homework and studying if you don't enjoy it, or unless you really need it in your degree. One really important thing is don't let one course defeat you. Having 4.0 GPAs might be important, to go to grad school or like after undergrad, but it really doesn't define you because you're way more than just a number. These GPA numbers, they just show how periodically how you did during these time. Like you might be experiencing other things, so it's very hard. It's very hard for you to get a 4.0 GPA, and numbers don't define you. So it is totally okay if you don't have a 4.0 GPA, and a lot of people don't have 4.0 GPA, so it's totally good. Don't worry about competition against other students in class because you may know that some classes are curved, so it's really based on how the class is doing, but that doesn't really matter because after all, this is just adding the stress that you'll have. If you just kind of focus on like studying and improving yourself, you will get a good mark or like A+ or like a really good GPA. Don't be afraid to withdraw from a class you don't like or struggling with. This is very important because once you fail a class, that will show up in your transcript as an F and it will drastically lower your overall GPA, and you don't want that to happen. So if there's a withdrawal deadline, so if you're not doing well in a class, so you can withdraw it, so it will just show up as a W. So W is always better than a D or an F, and it doesn't count toward your GPAs. And lastly, sleep more than you study. So as I said before, physical health and mental health is very important, and sleep will help you recover both physically and mentally throughout the day. And that sums up this slide.
All right, that was awesome. Thank you, everybody. So now we'll be starting our Q&A session. But before we do that, I just want to say that if you do take a lot of our tips and plan on going to on campus, please, please, please follow physical distancing guidelines, wear your mask, make sure to sanitize, and just to make sure you're safe, make sure your friends are safe. And again, take your precautions. So I'll pass it on to Palaswan to direct our Q&A.
Sure. All right. So you guys can start entering your questions into the chat. Today we actually have 5 people. Haley couldn't be here today, but there's myself, Elise, and Imeng, who you've seen present. And we also have joining us Emily Tran, who is in third year education, and Melanie, who is in third year nursing, so within the campus St. John's. So feel free to ask any questions, and we'll try to answer them to the best of our ability.
Awesome. So we have our first question from Abigail. She says, if you withdraw or fail a class, are you allowed to take it again in the future?
So just I said before, W is better than an F. So if you withdraw or fail a class, you can totally do it again. As far as I know, in engineering first year, once you fail a very important class such as math, whether it's in first semester or second semester, it's required that you take it again because math is very important in engineering, and I'm sure that in other faculties you can retake them once you withdraw them or fail them.
Great. So we have another question from Ellen. She says, how do you get your ID card since we aren't able to be on campus?
So for this year, I know they are offering virtual one cards, and I'm sure you can find some more information on the U Alberta website, or you should have got an email about it. If you are on campus, I believe you can get a actual ID card, but I'm not too sure on this. I know, however, that they have transitioned to virtual ID cards.
Okay. Another question is talking about Clubs Day in the WOW webinar. So they're asking, how does Clubs Day work? Do different clubs present on different days, or is it the same thing every day?
So typically how Clubs Day works is, or at least like in person, I'm sure it's going to be along the same lines virtually, but just because there are so many clubs, there are different ones every day. Some of the bigger ones do show up every day, but usually it is different ones that present on different days, just so they're kind of spread out and you get a feel for everything that's going on.
Okay. Just to add on to that, in the WOW webinar, you can actually search up WOW on the university website, and it should give you all the information for that. Okay, and our next question is, how do you get good grades while taking time to enjoy university life?
Honestly, it's all about finding balance. It is important to focus on your academics, but you also want to make sure you do take time to actually enjoy what's going on and have fun. Um, this doesn't sound great, but don't expect to get super great marks your first year. I know at least for me, my expectations of what was a good mark changed so much from high school. My first midterm, it was for physics 124, and I walked out of there with a 33%. And I thought, well, like that's not good. Um, but you honestly just have to adapt. Don't expect to do super well off the bat. It is doable. Um, but a big thing is you just have to adapt to university life. And it is important to take the time to figure out how to manage your courses, how to manage everything else going on in your life. Yeah, so I guess my big thing is don't expect to do super well your first semester, your first year. You will be able to get up to there, but you just need to take the time to adapt.
Okay, we have another question from Anthony that says, "Do you have any idea when the libraries will reopen, i.e., the full faculty?"
So for the time being, I believe Cameron Library first floor is the only library that is open. I think most of us don't know here ourselves whether other buildings will open. I know there are some in-person labs that are going to be happening during the year, so maybe that will um, cause other buildings to open up. But I think that's just something that you have to check with the COVID-19 updates that we are getting every single week. And there's also a link to the updates on the handbook as well.
We can also answer any kind of faculty-specific questions, any kind of oh, we have another one. So how will labs work?
All right, I can answer this question. I believe most first year labs are online. So this is going to be pretty different. I was in a first year physics class when the university buildings all shut down. And what happened was we had some at home labs that everyone would have like the general materials to be able to do. So they might do something similar for chemistry as well, or they might just have assignments where unfortunately you might not get that hands-on type of experience, but you will be exposed to the applications of different techniques through doing the assignments. But I'm pretty sure most of the stuff will be administered online. There's also a link on the handbook to check if you have any in-person labs, but from what I know, most labs are going to be online for first years.
Just to add to what Palaswan was saying, I was taking a chem course in the summer semester, which was all fully online. And for my lab component, we had to write up the lab report as usual, but instead of actually going in and doing the lab, we had to watch a video of someone else doing the lab. So that might be how it's going to work for your chem lab in the fall. Not entirely sure, but that's my experience.
Okay, and so another question from Tanner. It says, "Will ICE study groups be virtual this year?"
Yes, they will. I'm actually a ice mentor for a Nat 200. Not sure if anyone will be taking that this year, but yes, MSGs will be virtual and any student can sign up. You do not have to be a science student. They have a ton of courses from science classes to arts classes, economics, which is under arts, but yeah, they will all be virtual.
Okay, and so another question is, how much do you get to work across science disciplines if you are a science student? So I think what this means is that even though you're specializing in one discipline as a science student, how can you get involved in the other disciplines?
So, with any degree, that you're taking. I know some programs can seem more restrictive than others, but especially in your first 2 years, whether that be general arts, general science, or any other faculty, you do usually get exposure to a variety of classes. So I know for myself, being a physiology student, I still had to take some chemistry courses and biochemistry courses. So I did have that exposure to other science fields. And you should always have some room in your schedules for electives where you can take classes from really any other faculty that you want. So like I've taken like a linguistics course in the past, and I think electives are just a great way to kind of explore any other interests you have. And I think often when people don't really know what they want to go into and they take a variety of electives, that actually leads them into finding that they were interested in that field and changing programs, which is all part of the journey in university.
Okay, so another question from Abigail says, do students from specialization or honors programs have a harder time applying into professional programs due to the requirements set in these programs? I can answer that as well. So not necessarily. I think it's more in terms of requirements. Anyone can do requirements if you really want to. So, for example, I'm in an honors physiology course in degree, sorry, and then somebody in a science degree may also want to do a professional master's program, for example, say a master's of public health. It doesn't necessarily really matter what degree we have. It's more the fact that we meet the requirements for the master's course. And most of the times you can get away with doing the electives and getting those requirements no matter which course you are in or which degree you're in. If anybody wants to add to that, I don't know. No? Okay. So another question came in. It says, how different is studying across separate science or engineering programs?
So, speaking from an engineering student perspective, for engineering, it is general the first year. So everyone takes the same class, and first year, I think we have more first year engineering students than science students, in fact. Um, so everyone will be taking the same course. There's like 1,000 of kids, and then everyone's taking the same course. And when second year comes, you would have to use your GPA as kind of like the standard to enter the second year. So they will decide based on GPA, but they don't have a set standard. So it's based on how popular the discipline are. If this year, electrical engineer is very popular, so it will be really hard to get into electrical engineer this year. And so once you get into your second year, you kind of really start to specialize in different things. Two disciplines that are really similar is computer engineering and electrical engineering during their second year time, because computer is kind of like electrical too, so we kind of take the same similar courses. And if anyone from science wants to add to that.
Okay. So another question is, when does a general science student need to be required to declare a major and a minor?
Usually, most students that I know declare their major or minor during second year or after first year. I'm actually not too clear on what the exact deadline is, but that's one of the cases where talking to a faculty advisor would be really helpful because they would be much more knowledgeable on this than I am.
Okay, and this is a question for everybody. Is that what is one thing you wish you knew when transitioning into university life?
For me, I wish I didn't know that I didn't need to buy textbooks because I literally at the end of second year had textbooks that were still wrapped in the saran and I hadn't even opened that and it felt like I wasted a ton of money, so I wish I knew I didn't have to do that.
For me, it was really kind of learning about the different like Facebook groups and stuff, just even like for me, there's a lot of different like nursing Facebook pages, just kind of sharing tips and books and stuff. Overall, just having like access to people who have done, the courses before and kind of know all the little tricks was really nice for me.
For me, what was really helpful was like knowing that it's actually not that scary to go to like office hours and ask profs for help or like reach out to a TA or like other students for help.
Awesome. So another question is, how hard was the transition between high school and university for you? What are some things that you've done in high school that you had to change in order to achieve success in your courses?
So before I went into university last year, a lot of upper years are telling me, "Oh yeah, university is so hard. You can't just be the same you as you were in high school. You have to change. You have to work hard, or else you're gonna fail." So that kind of scared me a lot. It's guess it's partially true and partially not true, because I came in with the mentality of, okay, this is like new phase of my life. I'm gonna try so hard. um, I don't think I tried that hard after all, but like it was all like, I think like definitely have the mentality of like this is something that you're not gonna easily achieve, because I think even back in high school, marks seemed really easy to obtain, like physics and like those science courses. I was in the IB program and they were like, it's the intense program. Well, it had more homework, but I think comparing with intensity is definitely not as much as university. And something else that was different from high school and university is that university takes a lot of physical strength. I don't know about you guys, but the first week of my first year, I was like dead every single time I came back from university. Because I went there really early. Sometimes I have a morning class, morning lab from 8 a.m. And last year was really crazy. Last year on Wednesdays, I had morning labs starting from 8 a.m. and then I had to stay on campus until 9 p.m. because I had extracurriculars. So it was very hectic. So it just took some time for me to get used to the like physical strength and like also was like sleeping schedule. But definitely keep in mind that this isn't something really easy you can do right off the bat and do well right off the bat.
Um, just to add to that, a big difference between high school and university is the intensity. In high school, your semesters are 5 months long, or if you're in full year courses, they're like a full 10 months. You get to university, your semester is 13 weeks long. So stuff comes at you so fast. Your midterms usually hit like start of October, and it feels like you've just started and you're already halfway done. So kind of as we've talked about before, you really need to keep on top of things. Even if you get like a day behind or 2 days even, all of a sudden you're way farther behind than you thought, and it can be a real struggle to keep up and to catch up. So just because the material does come at you so fast, it's super dense. It is so much more intense than high school. So that's just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I one thing that I definitely noticed that changed from high school to university is that in high school, we had a lot of work days and a lot of review days, which was essentially kind of a break from always learning. Whereas in university, you don't really get those that often. So you do have to take that time outside of your class to review the material. But in addition to that, certain breaks that we get, like reading week, is a really good time to honestly just put everything aside and take a break. When it comes to reading week, you're usually in the vibe of like feeling like you need to do something every single day when you're doing your classes and stuff. But when you get to reading week, it is okay to put everything aside. I know for myself in first year, I made this huge to-do list of everything regarding like all my classes that I wanted to get done because there were assignments that were coming up after reading week. And I just ended up doing nothing, which of obviously I felt pretty bad about in my first year. But now going into my third year, I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with taking reading week off and just knowing that when I get back, like I just got to get back into full gear, but I need this break right now. So yeah.
Okay, so we just have one last question. So it looks like we're running a bit over time. Is that, do we need textbooks for Chem 101, Stat 151, Biology 108, and Psychology 105?
Okay, from my personal experience, I only use the textbook for Psych 105. For Stat 105, if you are going to buy a new textbook, you need the new one because you will need the access code to third-party homework material. You can buy the code just itself or the textbook with the code, but you need it to be new. And then for Chem 101 and Bio 108, I don't use any textbooks. Most of the test material comes from the professors itself. That is just my personal experience. So I really only use a textbook for Psych 105, and then I use the access code for Stat 151.
Just to add to that question, the most important thing is that you wait till syllabus week and you wait until your professor actually says anything about textbooks until you start buying anything. So again, first year mistakes, don't buy right away. Okay, and so lastly, there's some questions on nursing and education. So nursing specifically, is there any resources directed to nursing students only?
As far as nursing goes, there isn't a lot of like resources per se, but honestly, like it's best to kind of just go to your profs and go to your like clinical instructors and stuff because they will relay that information to you directly. Um, we do have different like faculty people that we can email for like specific questions. That's probably something that you could just like email me after and I can like directly send you the emails of those people. But essentially it's really just like ask your prof questions whenever you do or are struggling. And really like aside from that, like Facebook pages are a big one as far as like selling books and just like answering questions. So yeah, if anyone does want to be like shared or like invited into those Facebook groups, I can definitely add them in.
Awesome. Okay. Another question regarding education. So we know that there are elementary and secondary streams. How do you differentiate from the two, and how did you decide which one you wanted to do, if you did decide at all?
So I'm in secondary education and I'm currently majoring in chemistry and minoring in math. And those two differ because um, for the secondary route, you have to choose a major and a minor, and courses are very specific, whereas like you will be taking chemistry related courses or like math related courses, whereas the elementary, it's very general courses. Like you will do math courses, you'll do social studies and all that, but they're very general.
Okay. And the last question is, what is the best way to prepare for your first year? And I think I can start answering this, is that you just go in with an open mind. Don't have too many expectations. Personally, I would say is that when I came into first year, I had a lot of expectations of thinking it was really similar to high school. So just go in there with an open mind, do your best. Believe me, you will survive. Okay, and that is the end of our live. So thank you to everybody for bringing your questions, and thank you to all of our speakers. If you have any other questions later on, we will send our contact email so that you can contact us personally.
Sorry, I am just going to, Amira, if you can switch to the next slide. So if you guys do have any other, first of all, this is the QR code to the handbook. You guys should also have the link on our Eventbrite event page. Onto the next slide, we do still have 2 more events coming up with our UNI 101. Tomorrow, there's going to be a presentation from 11 different science undergrad associations. This is great if you are part of a specific program or part of general science. You can get to know all the different branches within science. And Thursday, it's pretty similar to the one tomorrow, and it's on engineering undergrad associations. And there are a couple organizations that are also going to be sharing some special engineering projects. We also have a Cross Canada Career webinar that is going to be coming up sometime in September, October. It's going to feature tech industry advancements from companies such as Huawei, IBM, and Connected. So that is pretty cool and something you can check out. Way to stay connected with this is you can add us on social media. We have Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We also have a website, but it is under construction right now. And last but not least, we are distributing our emails if you guys want to ask any questions. If you just hang on for 1 second, I can pull up the slide. Unless Amira, do you have the slide?
I do not, but you can absolutely go ahead.
All right. Okay, so if I just present this, I didn't have enough time to write all the names, but these are our emails. The last 2 emails are Melanie from nursing and Esther's email. She's in education. So these are our emails if you guys have any more questions, but there are also a ton of resources on the handbook. So like, for example, Student Connect, where you can also get any of your questions answered. Yeah, thank you so much for coming out.